Line, Chicago, Illinois. It's a typical summer day in America's second city. But what's this? And that? Oh, doctor, it appears NASCAR has returned to Grant Park. There's nowhere for everybody to go. And we're here for it. Hold on to your seats. A new Around the Track starts now.
Well, the Windy City is about to feel the fastest breeze that it's felt since 1 year ago when NASCAR came to town. Welcome to Around the Track. I'm Carla Gebhardt, and we're about to get you ready for this big race on the streets of Chicago. And what better way to do that than to talk with the guy that won the race just last season. We got Shane Van Gisbergen on the show in Garage Confidential. We also have Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic and Dirty Mo Media here to preview all the big storylines ahead of race day. And we've got some news about a couple of rookies making headlines this week. But first, let's talk about the race. Let's talk about the track that they made here in Chicago. And for more on that, we're going to send it in studio to Gabe McDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Carla. NASCAR has really found a hit with the street race in America's second city. After an inaugural run last year that thrust Shane Van Gisbergen onto the map, the Cup Series attempts to deliver another round of magic here in year two. In this race, it offers a little bit of everything. First off, the incredible backdrop of the Chicago skyline, and it's probably the only race on the schedule that takes the scenic route. The circuit is a 2.2-mile loop through Grant Park in the Windy City. It starts and ends on Columbus Drive in front of Buckingham Fountain. Now, the track is city roads, not really meant for high-speed racing. That means very tight turns and plenty of wrecks, as we saw last year. Because of the wet weather last year, NASCAR mandated single-file restarts. But that changes this year. We go back to double-file restarts, which we're used to seeing on every Sunday, which should make things interesting. Finally, there's still a lot of intrigue because this course is only in year two.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of prep. A lot of us, we don't race street races, right? So it's just something totally different and something that, you know, you try to be as prepared as you can for. But I'm definitely excited about Chicago. I enjoy the road courses and all that.
To the different apexes is really critical, and then I think our setups have evolved and probably taken some things and learned some things. So I'm sure the competition will be that much better.
Chicago's quite the wild card. You can get a surprise winner. You can get wrecked pretty easy as well. So.
And as we said, the circuit is a shade over 2 miles on asphalt. There's 12 turns, and all of them are very tight, with the front stretch passing right by scenic Lake Michigan on Lakeshore Drive. Now, last year's version was supposed to be 220 miles before being shortened due to weather. This year's race will go 165 miles in 75 laps. It's divided into 3 stages of 20 laps, 25 laps, and 30 laps. And of course, we've only had one man take the checkered flag. That is none other than Shane Van Gisbergen. Well, let's go ahead and send it back out to Carla in Chi-Town with a guest that you've seen many times here on Around the Track. Carla?
That's right, Gabe. We are here at the start-finish line. We got the sights and the sounds really picking up ahead of race day, and I am now joined by the Athletics' Jordan Bianchi. We got to talk a little bit about this race, this exciting race. It's a little warm right now, but I think we'll take the heat over the rain that you got last year, right?
We will gladly take the heat over the rain. Last year it was a mess. It was on near washout, and luckily they got the race in, and it turned out to be a great race, but it was a very close call whether they were actually going to be able to race or not. Thankfully, this year, it doesn't look like rain's going to be a problem.
And a historical race at that. We had Shane Van Gisbergen winning his very first Cup Series start here on the streets of Chicago, and he's kind of a favorite. I would think he has to be a favorite coming into this weekend.
He's definitely the favorite. He has such an advantage because a lot of these guys outside of this race have not raced on a street course before, and that advantage that SVG had a year ago was prevalent. And then you factor in the rain, which is conditions that he is very, very familiar with. He has such an overwhelming advantage, and then you just look at how this circuit lays out. It really plays to his strengths as a driver. He is so good on street and road courses. There's a lot of other great drivers in this as well, but SVG and his technique and how the heel-toe braking technique that is kind of his signature, if you will, is really the difference maker and separates him from everyone else.
Not only that, but he's also got 2 road course wins in the Xfinity Series side this year, so that's going to build a little confidence. You mentioned the variables, though, of the track last year. The track was wet. How was that an advantage for him?
Well, I mean, he is used to it, right? I mean, he has the ability and the experience of racing in wet conditions. And while some of these guys have, you know, AJ Allmendinger, for example, and, you know, though the Cup Series has raced in rain before on a road course, not anywhere close to the conditions of a year ago, and not on a street circuit. So you add all that together, and it's why SVG really kind of just blew the way doors off everybody, and it's why Chase Elliott and William Byron were like, that guy came in here and kicked our butt and embarrassed us, because he kind of did. But he is so good. And then you mentioned the Xfinity Series. That is really something that is going to further him this year, because a year ago, he came into this race, right? And he had no idea how to make pit stops or any really of the formalities, if you will, when it comes to NASCAR. Well, he's got all that experience underneath him now. He knows all that. He's not going to be throwing any curveballs that he isn't familiar with. And again, you can make a case of why some other guys may be good this weekend, but SVG also can have a case of why he's good and should be even better.
Yeah, he can take those corners and get close to the wall, even closer than Cup Series drivers can. So that'll be interesting. But there are some other guys in the field that do have a good shot at winning this race. Who do you think they are?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Kyle Larson is Kyle Larson. He is good everywhere. Christopher Bell led a lot of laps in this race a year ago, and he is coming in on a hot streak. And I know he crashed the last week at Nashville, but he won 2 stages a week ago. He's won, a few weeks ago at New Hampshire. He comes in on this heater, if you will, 600 at Charlotte. He is so good on road courses. He's underrated. He's got a win at the Charlotte Roval. He's won the Daytona road course before. And so when you look at his ability on these tracks, it's really not something you always talk about. But Christopher Bell is really, really good, so I like Christopher Bell a lot.
12 turns here, over 2 miles, and a lot of the drivers talk about turn 4. Why do they talk about turn 4?
Because it's hard. It's tight, it's bumpy, it goes into a section of the track where you come out with speed and everything too. And there's parts of this track really before turn 4 where you're like, oh, this doesn't feel like a street course. There's actually room to pass and maneuver, that kind of thing, and race side by side. But then when you start going into turn 4 and that speed and everything, and that section, you're like, oh, this gets a little narrow. This is a lot more bumpier than expected. It can be more challenging.
This is such a cool venue. We've been talking about it all weekend, just the fact that we're in the middle of Chicago and there's going to be a race that's going to happen right here. Put into perspective what NASCAR has been able to do the last 2 years.
This is an incredible accomplishment. For them to actually be able to do this, to build a functioning, working, world-class street circuit in downtown Chicago is incredible. All of the hurdles and the challenges that they faced to do it. When you showed up here a year ago, you're like, is this really going to be happening? Can they actually do it? And then you look around, you're like, they did it. Oh my goodness. It's kind of like the scene in Jurassic Park where they see the dinosaurs for the first time, and they're like, oh my goodness. That's what it was. And it's an incredible challenge that they've been able to do. And I give them all the credit in the world, because there was a lot of people that pushed back on them and said, are you really sure about this? Is this a good idea? Is this going to work? And you know what? NASCAR was very steadfast. They're like, we can do this. We're confident in this. And they pulled it off.
Yeah, NASCAR's coming to town. We got the haulers behind us getting here as well. It's such a scene here to see NASCAR on the streets of Chicago. Jordan, we appreciate your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Carla.
All right, Gabe.
Trackhouse, we always have a celebration sort of back to our heritage, I guess. And someone said you got to come up with something for when you win.
So the question is, will SVG get to punt the rugby ball in Chicago? We'll talk about his chances and his season so far in the Garage Confidential. Plus, this year's Rookie of the Year race just got derailed. Why? Well, this guy derailed another guy's chances to win a race. The punishment for Carson Osar is on deck here on ATT.
What better way to preview this race than to get in a car and ride around with one of the best road course racers in the Cup Series? We're getting in the car with Colleague Racing's AJ Allmendinger. He's taking us around the track when ATT continues.
Welcome back to Around the Track. Let's take a look at the very tight playoff bubble here in the Cup Series. Now that Joey Logano is off the bubble and safely into the playoffs via his Nashville win, it's put Bubba Wallace in a bigger hole. He's now on the outside looking in. It's also put Alex Bowman in danger of missing out as well. Bowman currently has a 51-point lead over Wallace for that final spot, but he's not the only one desperate for points. Chris Buescher, who's had great runs all year and come so close to winning on a handful of occasions, is only 56 points above the cut. Meanwhile, Chase Briscoe is behind Bubba at 78 points below the cut. Kyle Busch, he pretty much needs a win at this point. He's back 104 points and not even listed here on this graphic. Moving to the wreck of the race now, and it's not what you'd think it would be. Rookie Carson Osar spinning out Harrison Burton under caution at Nashville last weekend, and because of his actions, Osar has been fined $50,000 and loses 25 points. He was 22nd in points, and now he drops back to 24th. More importantly, that almost takes him right out of the running for Rookie of the Year. Carson and Josh Berry have been neck and neck all season long. But why'd he do it? Well, it was a little payback after Burton threw a block on the 77 earlier in the race. But that now comes back to bite him. Carla?
Thanks so much, Gabe. Well, Shane Van Gisbergen may be a rookie in the Xfinity Series, but he is not a rookie when it comes to the streets of Chicago. In fact, he is a winner. He won the inaugural race here in his very first Cup Series start just last season, and he's told us that he's pretty confident that he could possibly go back-to-back again this year. But listen, a lot has changed for this driver in 1 year since he won this race last season. He's moved from supercars to NASCAR. He has traveled across the country and moved here to America to pursue this dream, and it's something that we talked about in this week's Garage Confidential. All right, Shane, I know we talked to you ahead of the Daytona 500, but now you've had quite a bit of time in the car and a lot of different races. So how much fun has the last 6 months been for you?
It's been awesome, like learning something every week and just different tracks. We haven't been back to the same place twice yet, so just going to all these cool new places, driving the Xfinity, the Cup car, it's been really fun.
What have you learned? What's the biggest takeaway from the past 6 months?
Oh, where do you start? Like it's a completely different sport, basically, NASCAR, compared to any other motorsport, you know, especially the ovals, how the tires work, the cars work, the racing, the speed, the air, like everything is all new to me.
Chicago's coming up very soon, and it's almost been a year since you won your first Cup Series start. What a great moment. How excited are you to think about going back to that track again?
Oh, it should be good, and everyone will be looking forward to that too after last year and knowing what to expect now. So, yeah, I feel ready for it, and hopefully we can be somewhere near the front again and put on a good show. But, yeah, street circuits are never easy, and we got pretty lucky there. It wasn't too hot. I think if it gets hot there in a long summer race, it'll be pretty difficult. Yeah.
You also just got a win at Portland in the Xfinity car, and that's different than the next gen car, but how much confidence does that give you going into a road course for the Cup Series?
Oh yeah, any win is great, and how much it meant to Corlig and all the people there, and finally winning a race this year for the team. It's been pretty difficult for us, and yeah, it meant so much, and any win you can get or run well, it's good confidence booster.
Since you won, how different has life been for you?
Yeah, I was just saying before, you know, I would have been in supercars for another 10 years probably, and happy to be there, and yeah, this opportunity, everything's gone 180. So it's been a massive change, but I haven't really stopped smiling since Chicago. It's been an awesome opportunity.
I know the win at Portland, you got to kick the rugby ball. So where did that come from as a celebration?
Yeah. It's just part of a track house. You know, we always have a celebration sort of back to our heritage, I guess. And someone said, you got to come up with something for when you win. So yeah, it worked out pretty well. And I grew up playing rugby. So to kick a New Zealand rugby ball into the fans was pretty awesome. So hopefully do that more.
So if you win in the Cup Series, will it be the same celebration?
Yeah, but Portland was lucky. It was a small fence. So at most tracks they're high fences. So hopefully I can get it over.
Well, silly season is a lot like gambling, and the Wood brothers are playing blackjack. They've picked a new driver to take over the iconic 21 Ford Dark Horse. Who is it? We'll find out coming up next. And want to know what these guys are about to take on? Well, we took a joyride with one of NASCAR's best road course drivers, AJ Allmendinger. See what he has to say about the Chicago street course when Around the Track continues. Back here on Around the Track, as silly season in season continues as we get ready for Chicago. Earlier this week, Wood Brothers Racing announced that Josh Berry will drive the team's 21 car next season. Berry will come over to WBR from Stewart-Haas Racing after the team announced that it is closing its doors at the end of the 2024 season. Berry will replace Harrison Burton, who's currently in the 21. Berry is having a pretty steady year and has picked up a lot of momentum as of late with the four team, obviously, with 4 top 10 finishes, including 2 top 3 results in the last 7 races.
We had to look at Chase first with the relationship we have with Ford and he has with Ford, but it was obvious that wasn't going to work out. You know, Josh was by far and away the top prospect, and he being a Ford driver works, but I mean his results speak for themselves aside from that.
It really just means a lot to drive an iconic car like the 21. I feel like that it's a great opportunity for me. I feel ready to provide results, and I think that all in all, this is going to be a great relationship.
The team will now focus on finding a crew chief to pair with Berry. We're gathering it's not completely out of the question, but also not expected that Berry's current crew chief for the 4, Ronnie Childers, join him at Wood Brothers next season. But that still leaves plenty of drivers without a home for 2025. Noah Gregson and Ryan Priest are the two SHR drivers that are still out there. One of them could become the driver of Gene Haas's one-car factory team. And you also have Daniel Suarez, who still doesn't have an extension with Trackhouse, but we believe he'll be getting one soon. Todd Gilliland could be at the end of his deal with Front Row, and with Barry in, that means Harrison Burton is now out. And all four of those guys are in Chicago, as is our Carla Gebhardt, who had quite the ride with our next guest. Carla?
Thanks, Gabe. Yeah, NASCAR took on a pretty big project last season when they decided to hit the streets of Chicago for their first ever street course race, and now they're excited to return. But exactly what is the path that drivers will take? Well, it's over 2 miles. It has 12 turns, and it is a track that we rode around with Colleague Racing's A.J. Allmendinger. All right, so we're here with A.J. Allmendinger, Cup Series driver for the Chicago street course. And A.J., we are in literal rush hour right now as we drive through the street course. It's going to be a little bit different view for you the first weekend in July, but this is pretty special to at least know the route of this.
I'm hoping less cars in front of me, quite honestly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cars and a lot of traffic in front of me. So less cars, but yeah, just to be able to be in downtown Chicago at this street race. Such a historical city, historical sporting just background of what Chicago is. So to be able to have a street course race here in Chicago and be at the first one it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, and your viewpoint is going to be a lot different, going to be obviously a little bit lower in your vehicle, strapped up a lot more safely than you are right now. When you look at the map, and you've got the map pulled up on your phone, what's maybe something that kind of really stands out to you about this course?
Well, yeah, we just went down the long back straightaway. We're going to be carrying a lot of speed, and as we turn into basically turn 4 and turn 5 sections, track really narrows up. So I think that stands out right away is the fact that, you know, at times this racetrack can be very wide, but it also narrows up very quick. So as race car drivers, our eyes get very big, especially when we're trying to make a pass. Like, look at all this room we got.
Right.
So much room for activities. And then next thing you know, you get down the corner and it's super narrow. So that's going to be the biggest thing. But that's what street course racing is when you get down into a corner like that and with concrete walls up, you know, you make a small mistake, you get in just a little bit too deep, you're going to pay a big price for it.
Let's look at the map again. Where are we in the grand scheme of things on this course right now?
So if I got it right, and our great driver Julie can let me know, I think we're going to turn 11 right now. And
a lot of turns.
So yeah, so what's going to be real fun about this corner is we're rolling into the restart zone as well. So as we go up over this rise to get ready for the last turn, which is turn 12, this is also going to be the restart zone. So we're going to be firing off 2 wide into turn 12, going down this long front straightaway. And as we make the corner,
where's the checker?
so we're going to be halfway down. But what the thing is this looks very wide right now, which is great.
Right.
But this is also the pit lane as well. So this isn't going to be that wide. And we're going to go down the front straightaway in the start-finish line. But yeah, it's, as we just felt, there's a lot of challenges on this racetrack that are demanding you to make mistakes.
That's right, we got to give our victory lane locks. Who are we going to pick to win the street course race here in Chicago? Round 2 that NASCAR comes to town. Jordan Bianchi, you've got your pick. I've got mine. We'll get to those next.
Back here on ATT, and the odds are in for Chicago's second ever street race, the Grant Park 165. Here's who Vegas thinks will take the checkered flag. These odds are courtesy of DraftKings. Shane Van Gisbergen isn't sneaking up on anyone this year. The reigning Chicago champ. She tops the sports books with 5-1 odds. They have Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell both at 6-1, then Tyler Reddick and Chase Elliott rounding out the top 5. But do we agree? Let's go back to the shot where Carla and Jordan kick off this week's victory lane locks.
All right, Gabe, we still have the sights and sounds here. As you can see, the haulers are still behind us. The sights and sounds really picking up for the Chicago street course as NASCAR is finally in town. But we got to give our picks for this street course race. And I got to know, are you going to take SVG or are you going with somebody else?
I'm going to go somebody else. I'm not going to take the easy pick. I'm going to go Christopher Bell. I mentioned him earlier in the show, and he's really good on road courses. Led a bunch of laps here a year ago. Comes in on a hot streak. So give me Bell. The SVG pick is too obvious.
Okay, well, I am going to go with the obvious pick.
Of course.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's a smart pick, though. It's a smart pick.
smart pick. He won 2 road course races in the Xfinity Series. We talk a little bit about that confidence. We've also talked a little bit about how the drivers are kind of picking his brain on how to attack this street course race. I really just feel like he has a good shot to go back-to-back, but you never really know.
No, I mean, listen, SVG is really, really good here, but a lot has to go right for him to win, but we'll see.
All right, so Christopher Bell for you, SVG for me. Gabe, who do you have?
All right, thanks, Carl and Jordan. Enjoy the race out there. It's time for my victory lane lock, and I'm giving it to Tyler Reddick. I think it's only fitting that he drives the 45 car into victory lane in the Windy City. Already with a win this season and 6 other top 5 finishes, including one last week in Nashville, a race he feels he should have won, of course. He has a sick Jordan brand paint scheme with one of the original Jumpman logos on the hood and the sides. Just imagine that moment with Reddick and MJ celebrating after Reddick gets the win in the city where MJ became a legend. Of course, they got it done at Talladega with the Jordan brand paint scheme. I think Reddick is going to get it done this week. But that's going to do it for this week's Around the Track. For Carla Gebhardt and Jordan Bianchi, I'm Gabe McDonald. Enjoy the race at Chicago. We'll see you next week when we preview the race at the Tricky Triangle.